Hey guys, I wanted to touch base with you about the bonus points question from last week. If you didn't turn it in already, it's too late. I want to encourage you all to really consider doing those because we all need points, right? At the end of the day. But that said, I wanted to go over that for a brief minute because the answer was found in your Texas rules and regulations. Now it's in the LCDC resources. As I mentioned in the syllabus video, you don't need that for this class. You need that for your license. This is the body of rules and regulations that governs the LCDC license through the state of Texas. So when I say they're important, they're not only important, they are the governing body of your license. They are what says, look, there is so much misinformation out there you're going to hear. Everybody's got an opinion. Everybody's got a thought. Everybody's got a friend who did this or a colleague who did that. It's nonsense. So much of it. It's so irritating, right? Go to your rules and regs. That's where you're going to find your answer. And if you don't find it there, email your board because I want to tell you this about advocacy. Well, let me back up. Let me do the answers here, and then I want to talk to you about advocacy in a recent situation this week I came across. So the answer was, how long? The questions and answers are this: how long do you have to do a psychosocial assessment in a treatment setting? You have 3 days, 72 hours. It has to be done in 3 days, from the time they admit to the time they leave. Time they admit, 3 days. A master treatment plan or initial treatment plan has to be done in 5 days. Are there any exceptions to this rule? Absolutely. If they're sick, many people come in a detox, they're detoxing, they're not well, right? You can extend that date, but you have to document in their chart every day that you attempted to do this assessment and they were ill. If it's an IOP setting, then they miss a day, the day you're scheduled to do it, that happens. You just document. That's all you can do. Hey, client was not here. Client called in, client whatever, right? So there are those exceptions, but they have to be documented daily as to why they're not done. So good job on those for the couple of you that did them. That said, I wanted to tell you about a little story I saw about advocacy. So what brings that up for me are these bonus points. Like, advocate for yourself. Do these bonus points. Like, I'm not just going to give them to you, right? They're not going to be just, well, some of them are, but they're not just going to be give me's. You're going to have to do some work. Advocate for yourself. Learn this information. You're going to need to know these things. It's so important in your career. I'm going to give you an example of why it's so important for you to be aware and not listen to friends, family, colleagues. I mean, I say not listen to them, of course listen to them, but really understand that it's your responsibility to keep up with these things, with your career, because nobody else is gonna. And there's so much misinformation out there, it's scary, right? Like it's and when you're dealing with a licensing board, you do all this work. Let me give you an example. This week, a colleague reached out to me, a very dear colleague, said, hey man, or asked me if I was a CCS, which is a certified clinical supervisor for the LCDC license. And I am. I'm one of 6 in Harris County. I think 5 now in Harris County. 1 moved. And a couple don't practice it. So the issue with being a clinical supervisor, separate from a clinical training institute. So let me back up. A CTI is a clinical training institute. Your facility, when you get to the practicum stage of this career, right? You're a student, you're ready to get on site somewhere at a practicum. And they'll tell you more about this as you go, but just heads up, just giving you an example here of what happens sometimes. You are responsible for making sure that place is a CTI. The school can tell you it is. The place can tell you it is. I'm going to encourage you to call the board or email the board, just clarifying, is this place a clinical training institute? So if your place is a clinical training institute, that clinical training institute can then give anybody the designation of supervisor, as long as they're what's called a QCC, a qualified credentialed counselor. It could be an LCDC, it could be an MFT, LPC. They don't have to be an LPCS or an MFTS. They just have to be working at that clinical training institute. That said, as a CCS, I now become a individual supervisor or clinical training institute, right? So I can do the same thing they can do, only I can't designate someone. I am the someone, right? So that's the difference. The problem you have with a CCS like me, I can't give an intern what they need for the first 2,000 hours, right? Meaning they have to, the first 1,000 hours, you have to have a supervisor. I mean, you have to be with a supervisor, is how the rules read. The second 2,000 hours, you have to have a supervisor in the building. I can't do all that. I'm an individual in private practice, right? The second set of 2,000 hours, you become a level 3 intern, and then a supervisor just has to be a phone call away. So then you can work anywhere, clinical training institute or not, and have an outside supervisor like myself. So I hope that explains that a little bit, right? Or you can take the test right away, no matter how many hours you have, automatically be bumped up to a level 3 intern, because there's 3 levels of interns. And then I could supervise, an outside supervisor could supervise anytime. Right now, I don't do a lot of supervision. I really keep the credential because I've already got it, and it's cheap to keep, and I like it, right? So I keep it. But I had a colleague reach out to me, and he said, oh man, one of our interns is desperate for some help. They don't know what to do. Can they reach out to you and talk to you? And I said, absolutely, happy to help. Well, what happened was this colleague of his had done her internship in 2 places, his facility and another facility, and done like 2,600 hours of the 4,000 at another facility. Went to, and was supervised by an MFTS, a marriage and family, or MSW, I think it was, a social worker, supervisor. And everybody said, no, it's fine. It's a supervisor, right? And she was able to do her practicum at this facility. So she assumed it was a clinical training institute, but didn't follow up, didn't ask, didn't check. Long story short, she turns in all of her hours, and they rejected them and said, sorry, your 2,600 of these hours weren't done under the supervision of either a clinical training institute or a CCS. There is no arguing that. I reached out to the board myself for clarification, just to double check, are there any options for her? And they said the only option for her is to file for a 3-year extension, and she's got to redo those hours. And that's the second time in my career I've seen this happen. Now, when I very first got into my career, it happened to a dude twice. Same dude. So I got to believe there's more there than that, but whatever, it's not my issue. But he had lost about 2,000 hours at a facility because they weren't a clinical training institute, and then went somewhere else, same thing happened. So it's up to you to advocate for yourself. This is another reason my class is set up the way it is with a point system. I know it's different than what you're used to. Part of it is it's easier for me because it's what I'm used to. Right, it's what I did in my master's program as a point total. It just makes sense for me to keep up with rather than going, okay, this grade's 20%. It just makes sense. I can do the math, right? I know I need this many points. I'm this many points away, and there's this many points in assignment. So part of that's for me. But the other part of this design is for you to advocate for yourself, for you to be in a position to see, this is my points. This is the points I need. And this is the points remaining, and what do I need to do? If I need extra credit, advocate for that. If I need a textbook, advocate for that. If I'm struggling, advocate for that. Reach out to me, right? Reach out to Dr. Vauda. Reach out to one of the other professors. Reach out to the writing center, to somewhere, right? But when I put bonus points out and you don't do it, you're not advocating for yourself. It may not be a big deal for you, and that's okay. But when I do this Zoom meeting coming up, if you don't go, you don't go. I can't help you. But don't wait till the end of the semester and then be in a panic because you didn't advocate throughout the semester for yourself. Like, our job as clinicians is to advocate for our clients as well, advocate for their well-being, right? Don't get me wrong, I'm not going out and protesting for a client in any way, right, and advocating in that way, but I am advocating and knowing resources. That's why it's my job to know them, right? So advocate for yourselves, guys. Be sure you are able to know what you need, and not just listen to everybody else that's got a thought or an opinion or some information. There's just too much misinformation, and it can really cost you. Like, think about this young lady and how she's feeling right now. All that hard work, a year's worth of hard work done. Like, I'm not going to say it's not for nothing, because that's valuable experience either way. But man, what a tough spot to be in, right? So anyway, guys, I just wanted to share that with you, and I want to encourage you to continue to advocate for yourself. And if you're not doing it, do so, right? I'm going to share this in both classes. I know I mentioned some bonus stuff and whatever, but it was really for the 1300 class. But I'm going to share this in both 1300 and 1305. So some of that stuff may or may not apply to you, but at the end of the day, the message is the same. So guys, take care, and we'll talk soon.